I'm not a big fan of the cold weather, but sometimes you just have to get out in it. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now, if you love playing in the snow, there is a vehicle for you, the 2015 Subaru Crosstrek. Now, obviously, Subaru really delivers that kind of vehicle, so let's take a look at what this delivers. We recently got behind the wheel of the Forester. Now, the big difference between that and this starts really on the outside. First of all, the Forester, more plain Jane, straightforward. Now, the Crosstrek, maybe the cool kid in the family. Where it starts is really the profile. A lot more sloping and a lot more chisel. Really starting here at the back end. Now, what you're going to notice is still that typical silhouette that you're going to find on most of the Subaru wagons. Really all culminating with the typical lines, but what we have here is a lot more slope. Now, compared to the Forester, we find that to have a really high-waisted midline. Here, a lot more grounded and a little bit more cool. It's almost like they're twins. One got the cool gene, the other one didn't. Now, what you're going to see is a little bit more chisel around here, and what I really like is the huge rubber fascia, really down low all the way around. On the Forester, a little bit more regal through this area. Now, sweeping down the side, the black accents here to be expected. We really don't want this snow belt kind of vehicle to look chromed out. What we're going to have here is the nice black accents, body color all the way around. At the four corners of this vehicle, you can be sitting on 17-inch wheels, and what you see here is this really wild design factor when it comes to the rims. Now, this vehicle is a symmetrical all-wheel drive system, and that's expected on all the Subaru lineup because really what they're going to do well is get off the road, get into the mud, and kind of mess it up. Now, when it comes to ground clearance, pretty much I saw across the board with the Forester, the Outback, and the Crosstrek, they're all coming in about the same, just under 9 inches. Now, what's great about that, gives you a lot of lift. Now, this is a crossover vehicle, and crossovers usually get blended in with that whole sedan-like feel, but where this vehicle truly feels more rugged is right through here, off the ground, and nice grip at the corners. Looking at the sibling comparisons between the Forester here and the Crosstrek, really the differences come down to the numbers. Now, overall, you're looking at about 175 inches here in overall length. That compared to the Forester, this is about 5 inches smaller. Now, the numbers when it comes to the width are about the same, and the wheelbases are about the same here, around about 103.7 inches. One other area that's just a little bit shorter is in the height. Now, here, about 5 inches shorter than the Forester. Now, that all again comes in that the Forester had that high-waisted line and felt like it was a lot more vertical. Obviously, that's noticeable when the roof line's a lot higher. What I like with any manufacturer is really seeing those family lines across the lineup, and really where you see that is between the Forester and the Crosstrek right up here at front. Now, again, the Forester, plain Jane down the side, really got a lot going on in front. Here on the Crosstrek, the same idea, but what's really great is that stylized front end really matches with the rest of the profile. Now, what you're going to see is, again, the black accents back here, but that chrome really up front, that grille warfare I always talk about. Now, you do have nice airflow right through the center, body color all the way around, and nothing really out of place. Really looks really nice. Now, what I like is, of course, the stylized headlights that we saw on the rest of the family lineup, sweeping down the side, a lot of stuff going on underneath this lens. Now, down low, this is the dynamic fog lights we talked about on the Forester. Now, what's great with these is when you slightly turn the steering wheel either direction, these are going to illuminate and actually project to that side. That's going to give you a lot of visibility, especially in parking lots. Sweeping into a street, turning in, really helps out with safety. When you think of safety, one of the basics of that is glass. Being able to see around this vehicle, because sheet metal can be your Achilles heel when it comes to blind spots. Now, this vehicle doesn't have blind spot awareness, and the reason for that is, well, you don't need it. Basically because there's so much glass. Really right here on this front door, really a lot of glass up top, even right down here to this porthole, allowing you to see where a lot of vehicles put plastic and cover that up. Now, as you sweep down, going to be stereotypical, big glass here at the back end, even better right here at the back corner. This is typically, again, sheet metal, put some plastic there or whatever. This instead is glass, giving you a 360 view all the way around this vehicle. One thing to look at is really the roof rails on any vehicle. Now, what I like is the fact that these are raised and you have a lot of anchor points where you can rope things down. Now, the cross rails aren't standard, but what's great is you can put a lot of toys up here, and depending on what you actually want to carry, skis, bikes, whatever, you're going to want to buy this specific item to really anchor those down. Now, one other thing to talk about while we're over here is the Phillip Area. Now, what's great is this hatch is always secure. There is a lever there by the driver's floor. Pull on that, it's going to pop it open. One other thing is it does have a cap. Going to have to take that off there is a new trend to go capless. With all the sculpting on this vehicle, you're going to find at the back end just the same, with all the nice chiseling, nice stylizing of the rear taillights, and a nice sculpting right here at the rear bumper. Now, one thing you're not going to find is that rubber fascia that's going to sweep all the way around. It actually stops back here, body color, and just a little bit of highlights here on the back end. Now, one thing about safety is there is no backup sensors on this particular model, but you do get the backup camera, which is standard, and plenty of safety right there. Now, what you're going to see when you open this up is decent cargo area. Now, again, this is somewhat smaller than the Forester. The Forester is going to deliver over 30 cubic feet. This is going to fall about 12 cubic feet less, around about 22, but it still delivers plenty of room. What's really great with safety on any vehicle that has this much glass is be able to hide what you have inside the vehicle. And the way you do that is with the rear tonneau cover. Now, a lot of them are kind of stiff mounted. This one's a little bit more flexible material. Now, what you do is you pull it out and it goes in these nice grooves. It's going to lock it in. That's going to give you a total security back here. People can't peer in. Now, when that's out of the way, that's going to open you up to a lot of cargo area. Now, one thing to note is you do have a lot of anchor points really securing your gear, because again, this is for people that are going to ski and all that. And what really comes in handy is this nice protection here covering the rear floor. Now, the Crosstrek is going to weigh about 400 pounds less than the Forester, weighing in about 3,200 pounds overall. Now, what does that mean? Well, maybe you need a little less horsepower under the hood. Well, and that's what Crosstrek delivers. Now, what you have here is a 2.0 liter 4-cylinder boxer engine. Now, it's going to deliver around about 148 horses and 145 foot-pounds of torque. It's also going to deliver somewhat of a bit of noise here under the hood, a little bit of squealing and a lot more noise than you'd expect. Now, the engine can be coupled with a 5-speed manual transmission, but what I prefer is the as-tested CVT transmission. This is definitely the place to be on any cold day like this inside the actual Crosstrek versus looking at it. Now, what you want to look at first is legroom numbers. Now, compared to the Forester up front, they're going to be the same, around about 43 inches, plenty of room to really stretch out. Now, where the difference comes in is, of course, the overall length is a little bit smaller, so naturally the second row is going to come in just a hair short. There in the Forester, around about 38 inches, here a little bit tight at about 35. But either way, I really found that it had decent comfort. One thing about the seating as well, maybe on this particular model, it's just not comfortable. Now, these are somewhat basic seats. As you upgrade, you're going to get a little bit more plush. Now, one thing I noticed is the seats are somewhat small. Even for me, they were just kind of snug. They didn't have a lot of bolstering on the side, and they were somewhat maybe uncomfortable. Now, on the daily travel, didn't really notice it, but on the long trips, it just really was harsh on your back. Now, one other thing to note, on my seat, it was manual operated just like the passenger, but it did allow you to go to and fro, but also up and down. As for the passenger, just simply back and forth. Now, we saw this display similar on the Forester. Now, that one we were able to change the settings. On this one, pretty much straightforward on this particular model. Only have the temperature and the time with a little bit of safety information. Now, we do have typical vents across the dash. Now, one thing you'll notice here is good entertainment. Now, this is the upgraded 7-inch screen versus the standard 6.2. Now, it has decent operation with the good old home screen that's really going to start you off and get you oriented. Now, you do have simplified buttons that really aren't raised and have that kind of iPad surface touch. Now, the controls really simple, nice volume and tune select. I'll give Subaru credit, they love to keep things simple, and where they do that is, of course, on their dash. And where you're going to see that even better is on the climate controls. 3 huge knobs, all equal, all housing different functions. Of course, the mode select, fan speed, and the temperature. Now, this particular model, again, didn't have dual zones, but I did like the fact that it did set comfort quite easily. For the gauges, you're going to find the standard analog, tach, and speedometer with a little bit of digital display in between. Now, the digital display will give you the information for your cruise control and a digital readout for your actual speed. Now, one thing to note is it's really not changeable. Now, we found that to be changeable on a lot of vehicles, and there's even controls on the steering wheel that allow you to change something. Now, what's interesting is those controls absolutely did nothing. They had an up and down and an info set. All that did was really turn the digital speed off or turn it on. On the steering wheel, you're going to find all your entertainment systems on the left, along with your voice command buttons. On the right is going to be your adaptive cruise control. If you're not used to this, this pretty much allows you to set your cruise, use the safety devices built into the vehicle. It, since this vehicle's in front of you, will slow down naturally. As those vehicles move out of the way, it's going to increase its speed back to what you set. This vehicle has lots of safety, and of course it has the eyesight safety that we talked about previously. That's the 2 cameras going to project forward. That's going to work with the cruise control. Obviously collision alert, braking, and lane departure. Now one thing to note, it also has the seatbelt sensors like a lot of vehicles have. You don't put the seatbelt on, it's going to ding. Now one thing to also note is it never ends. If you don't put your seatbelt on, it will ding, ding, ding until the cows come home, or at least until you put your belt on. For the CVT automatic transmission, going to be the old standard gear select here. Now it does have a sport mode, and this vehicle actually has the paddle shifters. I suggest leaving it right here. Now when you sweep down between the front occupants, what you're going to find, this area right here is really nice to actually put your phone. It's going to hold it up, and you can keep your extra change right here. Now dual cup holders, typical, and what you're going to have is a modest center console. And what you're going to actually find in here is the connectivity, 2 USBs, auxiliary jack, and a nice power supply. Looking at the back seats, pretty much going to be straightforward bench styling. There is a little bit of a niche on both sides, a little bit of a hump in the middle, and also a hump on the floor where the center occupant's feet are going to go. Now for airflow back here, there are no vents that you can find anywhere, which means all the airflow is going to come from that front dash. Now you will notice that the front seat backs are curved. That's going to give the occupants a little bit more breathing room when it comes to their knees. Now that does it for this edition of Road Warrior, our test drive behind the wheel of the 2015 Subaru Crosstrek. Now compared to the Forester, well, it's a little bit smaller, a little less cargo, and a little less power. But what we really like is the exterior, a lot more sport. Now if you truly want to get off the road and, well, again, sling some snow, this will definitely do it. As always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.